The development of this podcast was sponsored by Alexion Pharmaceuticals Incorporated. The viewpoints expressed are those of the person speaking and not of Alexion. Welcome to NMOSD Your Way Global, an educational podcast series for NMOSD patients worldwide. NMOSD stands for Neuromyelitis Optica Spectrum Disorder, a rare relapsing autoimmune disorder of the central nervous system which primarily affects the optic nerves and the spinal cord. Your podcast hosts Lalania Lloyd and Debbie Latique, who have both lived with NMOSD for over 10 years, will be bringing their respective Canadian and Australian perspectives to the table in order to help patients worldwide better understand NMOSD. Over the next 16 episodes, clinicians, researchers, and fellow patients will come together to have important conversations about how to live your best life within your diagnosis. They will be offering up encouragement and practical tips for overall health and well-being. In this episode, Andrea, an advocate and member of the rare disease community, and James, her husband and caregiver, speak candidly about the ups and downs of adjusting to life after Andrea's diagnosis and subsequent vision loss. They share how they've worked together to restore Andrea's independence, the life-changing experience of working with a guide dog, and how adjusting to their new normal has strengthened their relationship. So, let's get started.
Welcome to the show, Andrea and James. Tell us a little bit about your life before you got sick. What did that look like?
So I was a corporate trainer back in 2011 before my first relapse struck. And I was at the peak of my career. I was traveling from state to state, just loving my job, training on customer service, computer entry, just was enjoying my job. I know if you ever spoke to any of my coworkers today and asked, how do you know Andrea's in the building? It's usually identified by my laughter. So I would always try to have fun in the classroom. I just have some very fond memories.
James, how long were you together before Andrea got sick?
Oh, wow. We met in early 2006. We were married in 2009. And then she was diagnosed in 2011. So we were still newlyweds.
And in what ways did the diagnosis change your marriage?
The way that it's changed our lives has been with my blindness. So having to adjust to being blind, that was huge. So what I had to do, honestly, was learn how to adapt to my blindness. So I went to a blind school for about a year and a half. And it took that long for me to get through the program because I kept relapsing, I want to say, within the first 2 years. And at that point, they didn't know what I had. So it was just a lot of trial and error. I remember the doctors always telling me things like, let's wait and see what happens. And I was just very determined, though, to find my diagnosis. But because it took the 2 years to find it, I lost the majority of sight with both of my eyes. I don't have any usable vision today. My left eye is completely blind. My right eye, I have some light perception, but I can't see any detail or anything of that sort. So having to adapt to the blindness has been a huge part. And that's what's changed dramatically since my diagnosis.
And James, how was it for you going through that with Andrea?
So the first couple, 2-3 years, she was having severe relapses every 6 months on the dot. Every April and every Thanksgiving, it was happening like that. And by the time the second year happened, I just thought this is just going to be the way it is. And going forward, and then the next year, same thing, every 6 months. And it wasn't till she went about a year without a relapse that I was finally starting to be encouraged by the situation. After the attack on her eyes was done, the disease decided to attack her hearing. So then we started running into the question, is this going to not only make you blind, but will it now make you deaf? That was a whole nother level of fear.
Yeah, I imagine that's pretty terrifying because you're already cut off by not having vision, but to lose your hearing, to kind of be completely cut off from being able to see and hear the world, like I can't even imagine how you were processing that, either one of you.
You deal with the fear, you deal with the uncertainty, you learn what methods of treatment work for you and which ones don't. You kind of learn that in the first couple of years kind of quickly. I mean, she checks her baseline every day.
So, James, how did you go about getting support for yourself as a partner and a caregiver?
I was fortunate. When all this happened, my parents live 20 minutes away. My father had already just retired. So when I couldn't do it, he was usually there, whether it was support for doctor's appointments. I was burning through vacation with doctor's appointments, hospital stays. It was just going fast. So there came a point for the first few years that halfway through the year, I was out of time off. And my father would step up and allow me to go work while he would be with her. Even when she was going to the orientation school for the blind, she would come home on the weekends and we would have the weekends together. And that kind of helped me stay connected to her.
Yeah, I imagine it's really tough when you have to, worry about finances on top of this medical emergency that's happening in your life.
We learned how to bounce back. And honestly, I mean, every time I had a relapse or I lost more vision because, it hit me pretty hard.
Mm-hmm.
First, it was the left eye, then it was the right eye very shortly after, and nothing would keep me stable. So every time I would lose something, I would look at James and say, it's time for us to reevaluate our financial situation because we're just not able to keep this lifestyle up anymore. So we've had to adjust and downsize, but we're making our house what we want it to be, and we're enjoying it, and we're making it, as comfortable as possible and enjoyable for us. So it's working out.
Yeah. Her stability came around the same time that my father passed. At that time, though, she was more confident. She was able to use different forms of public transportation. She was taking, the train home on the weekends. I didn't have to pick her up anymore.
Wow.
As her confidence and her comfort level increased, so did my need to not have and require so much support. It was back to just she and I being able to take care of each other.
And I think I had to kind of swallow my pride a little bit, Lelania, because, honestly, I went from driving, getting in a car and just jumping in and going wherever I wanted to go, to losing that freedom and that independence. It's a journey. So now I'm really focused on taking paratransit, which we have out here. And it's given me the independence so that I can get to the doctor's appointments on my own and not always rely upon James, say, hey, you got to take me to all these doctor's appointments on your days off. It's about asking for help too if you get lost.
And I imagine the more that you're out and you're doing things successfully and safely, that you build on that, right? You start to feel more and more capable of handling things.
Absolutely. That's a confidence builder. When I can come back from an appointment or somewhere I've never been, and I come back home and I get off that bus, it's a win. I made it. I did it. I did it on my own. I'm not burning up all of James's time off because I really try to be considerate of that, because I could just imagine he needs to recharge his batteries just like anyone else as a caregiver.
Yeah, exactly. So have there been times when the tables were turned, Andrea, and you were the one caring for James? And what was that like for both of you?
It was actually how we actually got together. So I'll back the story up a little bit. Somebody told her that I had fallen. So she called me, and we were friendly and flirtatious at the time, but we weren't together. I was in the hospital for about 3 days. We talked every day. And when I got out, after about 2 weeks, when I was finally able to start being a little bit more mobile, we met for coffee. About a week and a half, 2 weeks after that, we met for dinner, and I'm on crutches, and we've been together ever since.
As our minister says, it was falling in love the hard way. But I just stepped in like, he steps in with me, and that we have a good support system in the way that we operate this. So we will plan together and say, okay, what kind of meals are you looking at? And then I'll just make a list, go to the grocery store. I have paratransit, so I can go to the grocery store that way, get what I need, and then come back, cook, do whatever it is that he needs to take care of him. Because there's a lot of things that I can do still, even though I'm blind, I can still cook. I clean. Yeah, I shouldn't be saying this in front of you, should I?
I mean, when it comes to stuff like that, I know you could do it. I mean, when she decides she wants to cook, I sous chef. I'll get everything prepped, and then I'll walk away, and then she'll do it.
Yeah.
When it comes to cleaning house, it's, we team up. So she does what she can do, and then I'll do what she can't.
But that's marriage, right? I mean, whether you're disabled or not, that's how marriage and relationships work. That you're a team, and it's you against the world. And, that the best marriages are partnerships.
Absolutely. Yes. I'm fortunate. I did marry my best friend. So I don't really need to go away for support.
Yeah.
Support happens right here with us.
Yeah.
We support each other, and we are each other's best friends and soulmates and whatever cliches you want to say, but it's all true. I mean, we love each other so much, and that's what makes it work.
Can you tell us a little bit about your partners, Newcastle and Indy? What's it been like having a guide dog be a part of your daily life?
Oh my goodness. Having a guide dog is just a game changer for my independence and confidence. I know when I'm out traveling, on my own, or even with James or wherever I'm at, I know that my new partner, Indy, and even Newcastle, when he was my guide, that they always will have my back, and they will make sure that I don't get into trouble. And what I mean by that is, I won't trip over a curb. I won't walk into a car. So they alert me if there's an obstacle, if there's a car or anything like that.
I feel more comfortable with her being in public without me.
And it's amazing to have him. The challenges that I do have with a guide dog, though, which it's a fight every day. I mean, we'll go to a restaurant and people will automatically say things like, you can't have this dog in the restaurant. Or you need to go sit outside, and it's raining outside right now, and it's all wet outside. You need to go outside. So it's a lot of education. So you have to constantly educate the public on, your rights.
Yeah, for sure.
We also have to teach people not to distract them, because they're so cute. But when they do that, it's distracting, and I could fall, I could trip and fall. He could lose focus. So it's a whole educational piece.
So what advice do you have for couples facing a diagnosis like NMOSD? And what for individuals who face a diagnosis without the support of a full-time caregiver?
Well, as a couple, it's very much important to have a game plan on every aspect of, what can happen. Doesn't mean it will, but you need to cover your what ifs and have a game plan together, whether it's one's not able to communicate anymore. You have to be able to communicate. Tell myself that keep your heart soft and your skin thick. And I would have to kind of repeat that to myself from time to time. It was important for me to remind myself that. So that is also having patience and understanding as a caregiver is you know who this person is that you're caring for.
Yeah.
And from the perspective of a patient, as far as someone being solo without having the caregiver support, that's a whole different ballgame. And I want to say to that, it's really important for that person to have a system in place that works for them, whether that be connecting through social media and having different groups that you're in, that you can connect and, learn from others and be able to speak to others that have the disease. or whether it be, just figuring out what services you have available in your local community for rehabilitation, depending upon whatever disability it is that you're facing. To know that there is help out there, that you just have to find where those resources are.
Sure.
Yeah, I imagine that would be really helpful for people because you just don't know where to look and, you need those resources. And I think we're always looking for all kinds of stuff. And when we have places to go like Samira Foundation, Gussie Jackson, MS Society, just being able to access those resources helps people cope better, I think, to be able to get some support for whatever it is that they need. I just wanted to thank you both for taking the time to join us for this podcast and to be so vulnerable and open about your experience in your marriage and the effect that these diseases have had on it. And I think that, a lot of what you've said will hit home for a lot of people. And I'm just so appreciative of your time and energy. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having us. Always a pleasure.
We hope you have enjoyed listening to this NMOSD Your Way Global podcast. For more information about NMOSD and access to support and resources, please read the podcast description. What you have heard in this podcast may not be reflective of your own experience and does not replace the advice of a healthcare professional. If you have any concerns or specific questions about NMOSD, please speak to your physician.